Hi, this is Jessica. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a fabric postcard. To do this, we only need a few basic craft supplies. I have my sewing machine, which I'll use for free motion quilting and for a satin stitch. I will need a heavy weight interfacing, and for that I'm using Peltex, and then a glue stick and some fabric. You might also want to use a fusible web such as Wonder Under, but today I'm actually going to make this really simple, so I'm not going to be using that. I'm here at my craft station and I have an example of 3 different cards I made. These 2 are more pictorial cards, and these I did use the Wonder Under fusible web to actually fuse each of these fabric shapes. This is a card like I'm going to make today, which is just made out of one single piece of fabric. You'll note that this card actually doesn't have any quilting stitching on it, and it doesn't have the satin stitch edge like this one. So if I'm not going to add quilting like this, where each piece of fabric is quilted through, I would probably not send this in the regular mail because I'd worry fabric would flake off. But something like this or this, you can actually just use a normal stamp, and then you have to pay a 20-cent non-machinable surcharge. So let me show you how I make these. The first thing you need is your heavy weight, you can see how thick this is, interfacing. And this is called Peltex, and they make some that's fusible and fusible on both sides, or just plain. This is plain, it doesn't have anything sticky on it. It's just what I had in my stash, so that's what I'm using. And I have it already cut right here in a 4x6. I think that the post office will accept anything that's 3x5 or smaller. Or, I'm sorry, 3x5 or larger. And then I had found this fabric, which I dyed during a craft workshop, and I just thought that was a really interesting design, and I decided I would use this. So I have just a small scrap of it here already that I thought would make an interesting design. And I'm going to start by kind of deciding where it is I want to cut, like what part of the fabric do I want to be on my postcard. Sometimes I set it diagonally. You don't always just have to cut a flat rectangle. And you can obviously do this with any design fabric that you want, or you can dye your own, or you could just find a design you really like that you thought would make a neat postcard. So I'm going to cut this to 4x6. And this is where you'll see that this is just so easy. And while you might think that if you make these, you want to spend more time making ones with fusible, or also with glue stick, but that you're going to sew down, just because it gives you a little more time to be creative. But I feel like this is just such a great way to showcase interesting fabrics, and also to, you know, send a little treat to someone in the mail. I'm going to try to start sending more postcards to like my nephews, because, you know, everyone loves to get mail, but also I do swaps on sites like Ravelry or quilting forums or Post Crossing. So I just have my glue stick. This is actually a washable glue stick. I'm going to put the glue on here because I don't want to stretch out the fabric, and this interfacing won't stretch. This is a washable glue stick. It really doesn't matter because I am going to be sewing this down. If I wasn't sewing this down, then obviously you're not going to want to use something that can be washed. However, even if you don't quilt your fabric to your interfacing, you're still going to have a satin stitch to finish the edges. So I've got some glue on that. That's going to hold that tight. I'm just going to place this. Get that on there. Now you have 2 options. You can now be patient and wait for that glue to dry, or I'm actually going to take this to my iron and I'm going to press it, which the heat is going to dry the glue, and then I'm going to take it to my sewing machine. So I'm here at my sewing machine and I've ironed the glue dry so that it won't gum up my needle. You'll notice that because this is 4x6, I'm going to have to be really careful when I start and stop my thread, because I'm not going to be cutting anything off. If you're new to free motion quilting and need some extra space, just cut your blank larger and then trim it after you finish the quilting. I also just have some scrap thread in my bobbin, and you're more than welcome to use any thread you want. I've used black, but I found that it's sometimes better to use a lighter color because we're going to put a postcard backing on this, and sometimes the darker colors show through. So I'm just going to quilt this really quickly. My machine is loud, so I'm going to stop talking for a second. did a really very simple stipple just to make it quick for this tutorial. You could certainly spend time to make an interesting design or even highlight different areas with different thread colors. Now we're going to go back to the cutting table. Back at the cutting table, we're almost done. We're going to apply glue to the back now, and we're going to put on a backing. I know some people actually like to put on a paper backing, but I just find that I worry that my satin stitch is going to cut the paper because you still do need to secure the edges. I've also seen that they sell a product that is like a sticker that has the kind of postcard design on it. So you could buy those online if you wanted to. But I just have a pre-cut 4x6 piece of white fabric. So I'm going to attach that, same as I did my front. And this fabric is going to be where I write my note when I send my postcard. So again, I need to iron that glue dry, and then we're going to go back to the sewing machine one more time. I'm going to select a zigzag, and I want it to be fairly wide, so I have this set on a 4 on my machine. But because it's a satin stitch, it should be pretty short. So I have it just 1 before 0. So I notice my feed dogs are up, which means I forgot to put them down when I free motion quilted. So this satin stitch is going to attach the white fabric to the postcard, and it's also going to finish your edges. If you're someone who is really neat and tidy, you could probably select to use a fabric binding, but I actually like the look that the satin stitch gives. Or at least that's my story for not bothering doing a binding. So that's all you need to do there. I'm going to just secure it with a little bit of straight stitch here. And then we'll be back to the cutting board for one final step. So now you see here we've made a beautiful postcard, and it has that nice fabric border, satin stitch border that attaches all of our fabric and our backing. So we just need one more step to make this an official postcard. Just like most ones you buy at the store, we're going to take a permanent fabric marker and write postcard at the top, draw a line down the middle. So now when you mail this, you'll write on this side and you'll address it on this side. To mail this in the United States, a postcard stamp is 35 cents plus the 20-cent non-machinable rate. A lot of people say that just using a forever stamp is enough. My postman didn't like that, so I had to add the extra couple cents. But a lot of people have gotten away with it. I also mailed some of these internationally. The international stamp is $1.20, and then you also have the 20-cent non-machinable surcharge. Make sure you ask them to hand cancel because these will get caught up in the machine. So as you can see, we have some really nice fabric postcards. I still need to do the satin stitching on this one. So I'm going to mail this one out to someone on who comments on my blog by the end of this week. So if you'd like to receive it, comment on my blog and make sure that your comment is not a no reply blogger. And I will get your information and I'll send you out this postcard. I'm going to draw someone at the end of the week.